Joining me now is Senator Mike Lee, Senate Judiciary Committee member and author of Saving 9, the fight against the left's audacious plan to pack the Supreme Court and destroy American liberty. And Senator, speaking of this complete disregard for our institutions, you saw what Biden did today in Madrid. I want to bring it back to something else that the president said overseas.
The most important thing to be clear about is we have to change. I believe we have to codify Roe v. Wade in the law. And the way to do that is to make sure the Congress votes to do that. And if the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this.
The convulsion over the court continues, and it's now being aided by our president abroad. Your reaction?
This is appalling, Laura. First of all, the fact that he would go while on foreign soil and attack the Supreme Court of the United States to undermine it and to delegitimize it is unpatriotic. I've never seen anything quite like it. Secondly, insofar as he's suggesting that they need to codify Roe, he's lying there. They don't merely want to codify Roe. What they want to do is pass a bill that would, in addition to codifying Roe, it would take the protections of Roe all the way up until the moment a child takes its first breath, so that no state anywhere could impose any kind of legal restrictions, any kind of protections for unborn human beings. So he managed to be at once entirely heartless toward the unborn, entirely in conflict with his own prior decisions, his own prior statements about abortion, while as a U.S. senator and otherwise, and managed to disrespect one of the great institutions of our system. Look, warts and all, the Supreme Court of the United States isn't a bad court. It is a good court. And the fact that it's run by mortal human beings means they sometimes make mistakes. They did not make a mistake with Dobbs. They corrected a mistake they had made 49 years earlier. This is unacceptable behavior. I don't know whether to chalk it up to incompetence or avarice or both, but this is not going to fly with the American people.
Well, Senator Ed Markey today was talking about why it's so important for the Democrats to finally, what they want to do is to get rid of the filibuster.
The filibuster has to be amended, or it has to be eliminated. Otherwise, we're just going to see, not just in this area, but gun rights and climate and in so many other areas, just an evisceration of rights that Americans have come to depend upon.
Senator, I think the truth is that the left now hates the court because it's the only branch that still respects the original framework of the Constitution, at least as it's currently situated with the justices that are on board.
Yeah, that's right. And make no mistake, this idea of nuking the filibuster, in addition to being in conflict with what Joe Biden has said in very recent years about the fact that it would be a bad idea, this is not limited to their so-called attempt to codify Roe. No, that's just the first step. The real objective there is to expand the Supreme Court, to pack the Supreme Court, which, as I explained in Saving 9, is one of the most disastrous things they could do to the Constitution. It's not technically unconstitutional, but it's anti-constitutional. They would erode everything about it. And Ed Markey, as I explained in Saving 9, is one of the original architects of this modern plan to do it. But every time this has been attempted in modern history, Laura, it has ended badly for the American people, whether it succeeds or fails legislatively.
Senator, this idea of codifying Roe, just because a lot of people have been inquiring about this, I don't know what the legislation would look like or specifically say. I guess there's a draft of it already written, but I haven't read it. But what were the 2 or 3 challenges that the states would lodge against such an effort, other than obvious states' rights and the 10th Amendment?
Yeah. So first of all, they would perhaps argue that this is outside of Congress's authority to enact sweeping nationwide legislation like this. You know, you've got to actually have a jurisdictional hook in there somewhere, and it depends on what ground they rest it on. But let's assume just for a minute that they use the Commerce Clause, which is what Congress typically uses for almost any type of legislation it passes. Abortion is itself not an economic activity. It's certainly not an economic activity that takes place across state lines, typically. And so those might be some of the challenges that they would lodge against it. But the legislation itself may or may not be upheld at the end of the day. You know as well as anyone, Laura, the Supreme Court has been fairly permissive and deferential to Congress in defining the contours of the Commerce Clause. And that's also something I'll talk about in Saving 9. That is the ugly gift that keeps on giving that came about as a result of FDR's court packing plan 85 years ago. But at the end of the day, what they want to do is make sure that infanticide is legal.
Yeah, they don't want the people to have their own ability to determine their own destinies and futures in every state. They hate that. Back to the point that a lot of them just really don't like America or our founding documents. They want to, if they could, they would. I think they would get rid of it all and replace it with something much more akin to what governs the EU. Senator, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.